Hey everybody, it's Andrew's Weather Predictions, and today we have a lot to get into. Let's just get started. So, currently, we're taking a look at our current hazards. We do have a severe weather event that is ongoing right now as we speak. We have a supercell in Texas, a few supercells in Texas. We have a few supercells in Kentucky, and we did have a few tornadoes earlier today, one of which actually ended up destroying some homes and stuff. We'll talk about that. Currently, we have flood warnings, special marine warnings, looks like winter weather advisories, wind advisories, and red flag warnings throughout the United States, along with a frost advisory in California. Not much is happening really except these severe storms in Texas and the Ohio Valley. I'm going to run the Weather Prediction Center here. Here's your day 1 hazards. Day 2, we could have day 2 and then day 3. And I'll talk about day 2 for a little bit here. And then we're going to have a pretty expansive area of severe weather from Alabama, spreading into portions of Georgia and areas like that as well. We're going to have a pretty expansive risk on day 3. Fronts, look at Friday. Here's when our severe weather will start up around 18Z. 0Z really breaks off, 12Z, and then 0Z on Saturday. We should probably still be having some severe weather. Then after this, the pattern might get back active. Next week, we'll see. Rain over the next 7 days looks to be very heavy for the south. Flash flooding, a slight for day 1, slight for day 2. Storm Prediction Center. Day 1, we have a 2% risk of tornadoes, and then a 15 wind and a 5 hail across a couple areas, and a slight risk. Day 2, I will show you guys my outlook in a little bit. I really disagree with the Storm Prediction Center. They ended up removing the significant risk for wind and the 10 tour, and I really don't agree with that at all. Still think the tornado threat is 10% worthy. I'll even show you what I did in a little bit. He still went 36 hail, which I have that. And then on day 3, we end up having a slight risk. I'll show you what I have for that in a little bit here. Current radar, we have a severe thunderstorm warning in Kentucky approaching the radar. We have another one down here in Kentucky, a supercell thunderstorm. There's some other thunderstorms around the area, producing some rotation, probably some good storm structure. Take a look at the one in Knoxville. Some weak rotation with it present. This one in Texas has some pretty strong rotation. Then there's actually 2 supercells, one there and one there. They're a little bit embedded in each other. And we also have supercells further up to the north. Now, here's what I did with my outlook. This is my day 2 outlook. I have an enhanced risk of severe weather. Let me get this onto eraser. I have an enhanced risk of severe weather across portions of eastern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, southern Florida, southwest Georgia. Slight risk across Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, and a marginal all the way up into the Ohio Valley. Here's my tornado props. I ended up going 5% across a pretty large area. I do think there's potential for maybe a stronger tornado, and I also would have gone 30 significant risk for wind and 5 hail. Now, here is my severe weather outlook for April 9th, which is tomorrow, and I ended up going with a moderate risk across Mississippi, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Louisiana. It's for a 45 significant risk of damaging wind. Secondary margin over here for wind and hail. There's also a 30 significant risk of hail, and we also have a 10% significant risk of tornadoes. With my outlook, that is unofficial. These 2 outlooks I showed you are, of course, unofficial. Now let's go along with the SPC mesoscale analysis. We see the environment with those supercells in Texas is looking favorable enough for some tornadic activity and wind and hail if these things can get surface rooted, which they haven't. And the environment over in Kentucky is starting to become a bit more or less favorable as that sun goes down. These storms are outrunning the instability of that warm sector there. The lapse rates are starting to decrease. Actually, they're still decent, but they're probably going to be starting to decrease soon. You're going to be losing that heating of the day. Current hodograph's kind of out ahead of these thunderstorms. Here's the one in northeast Tennessee. It's favorable. And then the one in southeast Tennessee, it's very favorable. And then the one in Texas is there. Now, let's see here. let's start off with a broad view here. We're just going to start off with your forecast loop. And actually, we're going to go look at the HRRR on College of Do page. This is where the forecast loop does not take as long to load. And then on Pivotal Weather, we're not going to look at the forecast loop. We're going to look at specific hours on there. So let me just go over there. So we're looking at the 18Z run. This is going to be, this right here, this is going to be valid at right now. So here's how the day evolves. So these supercells, the HRRR, didn't actually initiate them until late at night. But it did initiate them and then quickly had them dying. Then, here's around 21Z, it started initiating supercells along the warm front here. Moving along, we started to see a couple areas of clusters of thunderstorms out ahead. Some of these could be supercellular, but we do see that MCS evolving. This is why I ended up going with a 45 significant risk of damaging wind gust. And there will be embedded supercells within this as well. It gets really major once it gets out of Alabama, and then once we shift over to the southeast region. Sorry if my dog is disrupting. Once we get over here, there will be some supercell opportunities Friday morning into the afternoon. Won't be surprised to see a 5% risk of tornadoes and a tornado watch with that stuff. But Saturday morning, boom. Here's your energy helicity tracks here, or helicity swaths. Sorry if I do hear my dog barking. My dad just came home. But here are those helicity swaths, and they're pretty major, especially anywhere in those green shades, anywhere in this area. This is where you're going to have those significant wind gusts, tornadoes, and damaging and large hail. Now, let me go back to around the 0Z with the new HRRR. We're going to take some forecast soundings. Northern Mississippi here. So this is a favorable environment. Now, the capping inversion will limit it a little bit at the surface. Photograph isn't that organized either. Eastern Oklahoma, it has a bit of a capping inversion, but overall, very favorable sounding. High lapse rates, pretty high shear, very favorable. If I do end up looking in the Fort Smith area in front of some developing storms there, wow, that is a sounding that will support embedded supercells, and maybe even, I do think we're going to see some supercells at initiation for around 3 hours or so. But wow, look at that Hodo. And then we'd have veered winds at the bottom there. High cape, high lapse rates, everything is there. If we do look at the instability and keep with joules per kilogram, we see a large area of 2,000 plus with some areas of 3,000 and 4,000. If you look at your energy, or if you look at your helicity, anywhere between 150 to 500 and maybe even 600 is very common. Wind gusts at this point with the line, they're going to be 60s, 70s, maybe even a perk of 80, who knows. As we get in later to the night, though, this thing really starts consolidating. We're really going to start to see that wind risk out ahead of it. Boom. Still looking at very favorable soundings there. If we can get supercells out in front of the line, which the HRRR does indicate happening, we're probably going to see some tornadic activity with those. And again, a very good sounding, just capping. Further south here, a bit less of a little bit more capping. Here's the NamNest model. We'll get over into this. It has a pretty similar solution. It has more supercells and stuff forming further south, though. But yeah, it shows a bunch of clusters of thunderstorms developing. Here's a sounding in central Arkansas. Actually very capped off. Let's look more south central. There's more south central Arkansas there. This is going to be a bit less of a capping inversion with high instability. Look at the NAM around 3Z. More with developing storms there. We start to see a very favorable sounding there, except for the capping inversion. But the storms have already formed, and that's even a bit more of a favorable sounding there. Even though there's a bit more capping, I could still break through it. Now, if we go into Friday here, we'll look at the NamNest for this. Into Friday, we're likely going to see severe weather spread across the deep south, and look at that quasi-linear convective system move off. 12Z, we're still having a pretty widespread risk of damaging wind gusts and tornadoes across this area. if we do take some soundings here, it's still a favorable environment for those embedded squall line tornadoes. If you live anywhere in Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Kentucky, maybe even Illinois and Indiana, you need to have a way to get these alerts overnight. These are going to be overnight storms that are going to be pesky and they're not going to want to go away. And even early morning in some cases. And I know people in their Saturday morning are going to want to sleep in, but you're going to have to take heed of these warnings because this is an urgent weather situation. Very significant forecast soundings are occurring with a very volatile environment in place. It's actually pretty rare to get a morning environment like what we're pulling right now. Soundings out of southern Alabama are very favorable except for that camping inversion. The Florida Panhandle has a lot more favorable soundings, I believe. Like stuff like this, like goodness, very favorable for that morning, for those morning tornadoes and wind gusts. And even if you're in a severe thunderstorm warning, some of these you might want to be actually taking shelter in your tornado area. There's going to be wind gusts approaching hurricane force with some of these storms, maybe even exceeding that. So you're really going to need to take your precautions. Yeah, but that NAM-NEST model develops a very nasty squall line. It has more capping inversion as the day goes on, but it ends up developing a second round of supercellular thunderstorms across the Carolinas. This round could end up producing some severe weather. We do take some forecast soundings there. It's favorable enough for there to be some tornado potential, wind potential, and hail potential. So potential for all hazards there. Looking at the energy helicity swaths on the NAM-NEST, let's just see how they evolve. Those are today's. It actually did a pretty good job with today, not gonna lie. Here's tomorrow. And that's how it evolves. So it's a little bit less, it's more concentrated than the triple R, but you can see they're very interesting. Now we're going to go into Weather Bell here. We're going to go on to the year. We're going to look at your instantaneous flash rate here. Here we go. We're going to look at the 1801 because there's not too much in the long range. If we want, we'll go look at the long range though. So here's tomorrow morning. I do expect it to be a risk for some tornadoes, wind gusts, and hail in the Gulf Coast, and there probably will be some sort of watches that'll get put up. And this is the afternoon. I mean, just look at how this lights up. Supercells, wind. There's your heavy wind maker. Moves off to the east, and then boom, Sunday. Sunday comes rolling around. It's still potentially some severe weather in the northeast and Florida. Let's take a look at what Sunday looks like, honestly. I want to see what Sunday looks like. So Sunday could have some severe weather across areas like Florida and some in the northeast as well. Let me go look at the Euro on that with the 12Z run. Let me just look at the northeast and just take a quick glance over what happens. There might even be a severe risk all the way up here. What? There's dew points in the 60s. We might have a severe risk up here. Oh, yeah, that's a severe risk, but we're not really worried about that too much. Let me go look, what was it, like it'd be hour, like, 84. So Monday, 0Z. Euro ends up advancing a warm sector up there, that is very true. And yeah, it ends up having some pretty heavy thunderstorm activity up there. Let's see here. Semi-favorable environment for a large hail. Let's advance, let's look at that long-range pattern on the Euro, though, and just analyze it. So here's that upcoming system, and the Euro spits out some supercells. What the? 18Z on Saturday. But yeah, there's that upcoming system. It looks like these next coming days are going to be very active for storms. Looks like that could be something too. Maybe some wind gusts in the morning on Thursday if that would happen. It looks like it quiets stuff down for a while. Very interesting. Let's just look at the dew point returns and just see what that is. There's those next couple of days. maybe some severe weather across the south with some of this. Let me look at the HRRR for our NamNest for one last thing. I'm going to look at the lower level jet energy with this upcoming setup. Is that something I really want to see what's happening with that? And that's something that's very conducive and very important for severe weather setups. We're gonna wait a second as that loads. Okay. So here's your secondary low pressure starting to form up in Texas. That's going to translate further to the north and east as you go throughout the day. We start to see that lower level jet kind of more evenly go space out. And this is 21Z, so we start to see lower level jet energy of 30, 40 knots, maybe 50 knots as the night goes along. Yeah, 50, 60 knots as the night goes along. That's very high lower level jet energy. If you take soundings in there, you're going to get very strong photographs. Yeah, you're going to get soundings like that. This is a cherry pick sounding, but Jesus. Very high shear if you end up looking at that. We could actually end up having severe weather in the northeast the next day. Something that's not out of the question. But I do think this is going to wrap it up. Let me just get one last look at that Texas storm there. 2-inch, 1.2 and 5-inch hail reported. Okay, very interesting. Looks like this has got a lot of damaged winds, but that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.